try going up without it. Yeah, he gets it by a car.
Okay. All right, you ready?
Do it.
We could rise for the Lord's Prayer, please. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Donahue. Here. Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armand Mercia. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milonazo.
Here.
Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Okay. First item is acceptance of the minutes of the February 28th meeting. Move to approve by Councilor Rita Mercia, second by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Under the city manager's portion of the agenda, we have reappointments to the Council on Aging. Dear Mayor Martin and members of the City Council, pursuant to the authority specified in the Code of the City of Lowell, Section 2-76, it is with pleasure that I am reappointing 3 members to the Council on Aging for the term shown. Eileen Golden, 3-year term expiring 3/7/09, and such additional time until successor is appointed and qualified. Ian M. Kuna, 3-year term expiring 3/7/09, and such additional time until a successor is appointed and qualified. And James Bowinas, 3-year term expiring 3/7/09, and such additional time until a successor is appointed and qualified. Confirmation by the City Council is requested for these appointments and is required and is hereby requested.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armand Mercia. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Next item is appointment of Rachel Edlin to the Historic Board. Dear Mayor and members of the City Council, pursuant to the authority vested in me as City Manager under Section 5A of Chapter 566 of the Acts of 1983, I have appointed the following person to the Lowell Historic Board. Rachel Edlund as the Boston Society of Architects American Institute of Architects member for a 2-year term expiring March 7, 2008. Under the above referenced statute, confirmation by the City Council is required for this reappointment and is hereby requested.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Donahue.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia. Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Next item is appointment of John DeSilva, Sheila Hallisey as library trustees. Dear Mayor Martin, members of the City Council, pursuant to the authority specified in the Code of the City of Lowell, Section 17-166, it is with pleasure I am reappointing the following Board of Trustees of the Library to terms which expire March 7, 2010, or until such time as the successor is appointed or qualified. Mr. John DeSilva, Ms. Sheila Hallisey. Confirmation by the City Council is required for these appointments and is hereby requested. Very truly yours, John F. Cox, City Manager. It's the wish of the council.
Move approval.
Move approval by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Roll call.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Donahue.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia. Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent. This one replaces this Morris.
Okay, next item is appointments to the Hunger Homeless Commission. Dear Mayor Martin and members of the City Council, pursuant to the authority vested in me as City Manager under Chapter 382 of the Acts of 1991 and the Code of the City of Lowell, Section 2-120, I am appointing the following to the Hunger Homeless Commission for 2-year term expiring March 7, 2008, or until such time as successor is appointed and qualified. This is Elijah Herrig Blaine from Community Teamwork, and the second item was a replacement, Janet Barasorian, the Lowell Transitional Living Center. Under the above referenced ordinance, confirmation by the council is required. Very truly yours, John F. Cox, City Manager. It's the wish of the council.
Move for approval.
Motion to approve
Second.
by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Donahue. Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia. Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay. The next item is an ordinance.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
If I may.
Councilor Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I'd like to thank you for beginning the process on the appointment. I was hoping you could give us an idea of the process you are using. And the reason I ask is I'd like you to give some priority to the more regulatory boards, like the planning and zoning and the boards that we're hearing about from our constituents and the media on a regular day basis that are seeing the public on a regular basis.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, councilors. I think we had 8 appointments tonight and 8 postings tonight. So obviously, you know, that's a process we go through. On these boards, I believe some of them, Hunger Homeless, for instance, were recommended by various entities in the city. The library trustees were recommended by Dora St. Martin, the librarian. Historic board member was an architect that's required by law. Council on Aging recommendations came from Lynn Zunas, who's the executive director of the senior center. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a sense of these board members, whether they want to be reappointed. We trying to have discussions with each one of them, and then we go from there. So there's no real rhyme or reason. There's still a lot of reappointments and appointments that need to be made, and we'll go through that as we go forward over the next several weeks.
Okay, well, if I may, why don't I make a request that you see if you can move up the more prominent regulatory boards, like the planning and the zoning, to the forefront, and at least get those through here in the short order.
Council, I'm doing this best I can. I'm not going to make any commitments tonight that I'll bring in those boards before any other boards. I'm going to do the best I can on the reappointments. That's what I'll do.
Okay. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. You know, certainly the planning board's been in the news all the time, and the, I don't even know how many are in holdover status. So, and my understanding is, and we had the discussion before, that if as far as that board, and I think like ZBA, and if you're not going to reappoint someone, then we don't advertise. And if you are going to reappoint them, then we do. We don't, in other words, when the vacancies have occurred, if you're not intending to, or if they want to resign or whatever, then we advertise those positions.
Right.
If they do want to continue to serve and you do want to, then we don't advertise them.
Right.
So, I think it's important that we bring those current, and if it's a question of, either they want in or they don't want in, or you want them in or you don't want them in. I mean, that's the prerogative of the manager, and then just bring them forward. And so, I'm not saying just because the Lowell Sun writes about it that we should be reacting, but they're a little bit different than some of the others where we look to for recommendations. Do you know what I'm saying? We're not looking to for recommendations and all that. And we did get the list, and there were many, many people. So it's not. But I think as to those that it's either, it's up to you, your prerogative, or theirs, then maybe we can get those done so that the public feels that whoever's there is there by will of this manager and this council or what have you, or, so that we're not,
Well,
I mean,
I see what you're saying, Councilor, and clearly, the people that are in holdover status that are there now, I have not chosen to, at this point, to remove them or
right,
fill a
right. And I'm
vacancy.
not trying to pick on anybody, because
Right.
people serve, and they're, I'm not suggesting that your time's up, hit the bricks or anything like
Right.
that. All I'm saying is that we should, sometimes then they get picked on because they're in holdover status. It's not their fault they're in holdover
Right,
status.
right.
They're just there. So, and it makes it seem like they're not there rightfully, or or whatever. And so that's the only
Right.
point of the comment.
And
I mean, and I understand there are dozens and dozens of board members out there. So,
And
but
what I am doing now, as evidenced by this evening, is having ongoing discussions with board members to see, what the status of their, whether they want to stay, first of all, and then whether the reappointment would be something I would bring forward. And I'm doing that the best I can, and the fact, I'm glad you pointed out, the fact that the newspaper writes about a particular board, I could absolutely care less about
well,
the
that's
newspaper
true.
writing
Except
about it.
that except that I don't want the public to think these people are second-class board members.
of course
In other
not.
words, if you know what I mean, that's all I'm saying is I think that the board and the public should feel that no, these people are here and they're here legitimately. They're not in some second-class status, and because sometimes that's the impression. It's like, oh, well, their term expired. They're just hanging around, and so that's the only point. I just think
the list that we gave, that the council has received, there are some people on some boards that have been holdover status from before I got here.
Yeah,
And so,
no, I know.
the fact that people think that is
Right.
wrong, obviously, but we're doing the best we can with it, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, so, and if those who are there want to indicate they want in or out, and then we can deal with them. I mean, it obviously doesn't take a lot of time on the agenda for the council, it's more the
Right.
background, so.
And believe it or not, there are other things besides appointments that need to be done on a daily basis.
There are?
In the manager's office.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has nothing to do with appointments, but before we forget, I'm just going to bring this forward, that Mr. Manager, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager, if we could send a thank you to Constance Pine Aitchen for 10 years of dedicated service to the Lowell Housing Authority. She has served with professionalism, dignity, and she represented the tenants in the Lowell Housing Authority to the utmost. 10 great years, and I think all my colleagues agree that we should send her a thank you for her service. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Milonazo?
Just as a point of clarification, on the last vote that we took regarding the Hunger Homeless Commission, was that to accept the communication and place on file as opposed to reappointment? Is that correct? Because it's my understanding council approval is not required.
I think that is correct, yeah.
Okay.
I think that is correct. Councilor Broderick?
Just one hopefully brief question here. As far as the reappointments go, and you had given us a copy of some of the what was being advertised, I've had a few people, and I'm sure the other councils have, stop them, at different events, and, how do we apply? Where do you apply? How do we get on a board? If you could address that, Mr. Manager.
They should send an inquiry to my office, and certainly we'd put them in the file and review them. And obviously, when we make appointments, the council will get all the resumes that we received, and they can look at all the different people who had applied. So the best thing is to send them here to the city manager's office at City Hall, and right downtown.
Okay, because I know some people don't know what boards are out there. They want to, they want to help out, they want to participate, but
Right.
they're not sure what boards we even have, so maybe it would be
You
some...
know what, I'm thinking, excuse me, Council, I'm sorry. I think they probably should send it to Human Resources downstairs. I think that's probably the proper,
Okay,
more proper route.
all right, thank you.
Okay. The next item is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell as amended with respect to Chapter 10 thereof, entitled Health and Sanitation, with respect to the new noise ordinance, not new ordinance. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor of waiving the full reading, say aye. Any opposed? That motion is approved. This matter is referred to a public hearing on March the 28th. So moved by Councilor Rita Mercier, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that it's set for a public hearing. I knew that it would be. I'm not forming any opinions, but I do have a question. It probably can be asked at that time, but I just want to ask it today, because if it's not what I think it should be, then I don't know how I could support it anyway. But when we look at the second page of that, it's the ordinance, but and I do see that it says that it's subject to review and revocation by the License Commission. But when you open the next page and it's subsection B, it seems that a level at any point on the real property boundaries of property to exceed 5 decibels or more, the sound levels limits set forth below. And there's a list of the district, the area of the city, the time that it can be allowed with the music or whatever, and the sound levels, the decibel levels. And it seems like we set a limit for hours and what decibel level. And then when you turn the next page, it seems to me that it's like the maximum listed above, the maximum permissible sound level shall be 5 decibels higher than the ambient noise level. So my question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Christine O'Connor, the solicitor, and I don't even know if you're the one, Christine, that has put this together, but I need to know, are we setting decibel level limits, but they can exceed to 5 decibels more? That's my understanding. It seems like, for example, if you live in a single family, you can, from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., it can't exceed 50 decibels. But it seems to me that that's set a rule, but on the next paragraph in the next section, but it shall be 5 decibels higher than the ambient noise level. So I'm a little bit confused. Are we setting a guideline, but we can amend it to be 5 decibels higher? How am I interpreting this? I don't understand.
Sure. This portion of the noise ordinance actually is what we've always had. The only amendments that took place to this portion of the noise ordinance had to do with the rezoning, and it was just to include some of the new zoning areas, and to adopt the same sort of sound level that we had in previous similar zones. And so all of the language that that's before you tonight with respect to Section B is what has always been in our ordinance.
So if I
The
live in...
real change tonight was to add in a special section whereby you could obtain a license and/or special permit.
Okay, I understand
downtown,
that.
Public.
And you need to go for a license.
And that's not going to be measured by the decibel levels.
Why I'm asking this, and I'm still not clear, is let's say I have a restaurant downtown, we're going to have some music outside, and I pull a special license to make that happen, and I'm going at the right time, and I have to stop at 10 o'clock, but let's say it's a little bit too loud, and the decibel reading should be, let's say, 50 in that area. Is this allowing it to be 55? Are we...
Well, no, as far as the outdoor, once you obtain a license or a special permit,
Right.
the decibel levels are not going to necessarily be in play, because you would presumably exceed some of them anyway. Once you get your license or your special permit, that's why there's no amplification allowed in the downtown except by special permit, and those would only be instances in which you would have, say, the folk festival, where it would be for a very limited period of time, or a special event.
All right.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does this, again, without forming an opinion before the public hearing, but does this noise ordinance deal with car radios? I mean, if you're in the downtown...
That would be an ambient noise that would fall under the guidelines of the noise ordinance. So
Okay.
yes.
Is there a fine structure within the ordinance? I didn't see anything there, or is it...
I believe there was a fine section in the ordinance itself that's still in existence.
Okay.
I don't know. I apologize. I don't know if offhand, and I hadn't actually reviewed the penalty section again.
Okay.
But I believe there is.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you again to the city solicitor. Do we have anybody that has a decibel reader? Do the police have a decibel meter to read? Or are we going just by...
We do, yeah. The police department and the, I believe the health department, but the police department has one. I don't know how widespread.
Well, you know what?
used
This
it
is
had
a
been.
very serious issue, especially with the residents downtown. Even when you're walking down the street and someone's got this blaring music that like pumps your heart into oblivion, like you feel like you're having a heart attack, it's jumping out of your skin. This isn't right. And I hope that our police department actually realizes this and finds these people. I mean, I love music too, but I don't want everybody to hear what I happen to like.
We can check with the police department. It may be that the equipment that they have, they may need something slightly more sophisticated than what they have, but we can double check that with the police department
Thank you.
and see how that's working.
Okay, Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real briefly, to follow up on what Councilor Milonazo just touched upon is the fines, and I assume that if it's a motor vehicle, a traffic violation, that somehow it can be sent to the registry to be enforced and collected, just like a parking ticket and other tickets, that these will actually be something we can collect on and they'll be more effective? Maybe through the solicitor?
Right. As far as Lowell now has a couple of means of collecting fines, and one of the most useful means has been any unpaid fine of a resident can go on their property taxes. And that way, if it's not paid along with their property taxes, the city obviously would then institute a taking. But the other vehicle is the one in which you refer to. I don't seem to have the rest of the ordinance in this pack, so I'm not sure offhand what the prior ordinance referred to, but I can take a look at that and give you a report on next Tuesday.
I guess it always leads to a second question. What if it's a tenant? Can we still put it on
You could do
the
it.
landlord?
You could do it. You could do it in accordance to what you were just suggesting for a license through the motor vehicles.
Even if it's an apartment violation of music or?
That I would have to check. But I can, again, I don't have the rest of the ordinance before me, but I can check and put something in your packet for Friday on
It'd
that.
certainly be easy if we get the landlord, let the landlord chase the tenant. Right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
Okay.
allowable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor, if I could just suggest, before I recognize Councilor Elliott, we get a summary of the rest of the ordinance in advance of the public hearing. I think that'd be helpful. This matter only amends certain provisions of the noise ordinance. There are other provisions that aren't discussed in this amendment, but I think would be helpful for folks to see. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we also get the number of citations and violations that have been written? And I understand that they might need some device or something, but I think we need to send a message that if you're sitting in your car and when you get your windows rolled up and the other vehicle has the windows rolled up, and you can hear and more importantly, you can feel the vibrations. I don't think the police need to get out some mechanical device to measure it. I think they should stop them, cite them, and move on. I think we need to be serious about it, unless it's just an ordinance that, just going to sit on the shelf, which is not what any of us want. But are you saying that each cruiser needs a noise measuring device in order to? And I'm sure if it's pushed to a legal matter, they'll say, well, did you measure it? But
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry. Counselor, I clearly don't think that every cruiser has this type of equipment at this point. I know that there is equipment in the health department and in the police department normally to go if someone calls for late music at a party or a bar or something like that downtown, they're able to measure that. I think clearly up until this point, the police have tried to more be warning of people when they hear that type of thing and stop a vehicle. I don't think there's been many citations issued. I don't know that for a fact, but
right.
We could certainly check that out. I wouldn't think there has been. I think it's been more like a warning situation. And clearly, as we go forward with a noise ordinance, we need to put it out there that this is for real, that citations will be issued, and we expect people to follow the ordinance as any other ordinance.
No, I agree. I think once we do adopt it, that we send a message out, and the way to do that is to, everybody can listen to any type of music that they want, but some of the music that's being played so loud, and if they want to listen to it in their own home or their own vehicle, that's fine, but some of it's quite offensive, in my opinion, when people have small children and, some of the music some of the language that's being used, it's clearly not appropriate. So I clearly support the motion, and when it does go into effect, I hope that we will be serious and we issue some citations. Otherwise, I think it'll just continue with summertime's coming, and I think it's a quality of life issue for people.
Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. We passed this ordinance many years ago, and this is amending that ordinance, adding more territories, right?
Right.
Or-
The gist of it really was to get some sort of guidelines for outdoor public entertainment.
Right,
which
for
was,
the entertainment areas.
Right.
When we did pass it, and we had extensive research done about this, I remember Tom Sweeney.
Actually, I had worked on.
Oh, you did
this
it? Okay.
This was my baby.
This was, okay.
And I don't
So we
remember much
did
of it.
research these and what would need in order to enforce it in court and all that. And
I did.
I think
And-
Councilor Mercier was on that subcommittee as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
And we felt at the time, or were told, that we needed these readings in order to make it stick. And the idea was that the police department was going to purchase, and we didn't have them in every cruiser, that was true, but the police department was over time going to purchase these, especially those on patrol or those nights that they, may encounter noise, or even afternoons with the cars, blaring the stereo. So I think it's a good idea in light of this amendment that's coming up. If we can get a report from the police department, where are we today since we passed the ordinance, and particularly because not just downtown, but downtown's really become noisy and more residential at the same time. So if we can get that information, I think that would be a good idea. But I think we should know what's going on with the equipment, and if they've made any efforts to add equipment. I think we had 6 units. For some reason that stands out in mind. 6 decibel readers that were purchased when we first adopted the ordinance, and that might have been in, I don't know what year, 98, might have, anyway, it was a long time ago. So if we can find out where we stand on that, that would be helpful, I think.
Okay. I think, do we vote to refer this to the public hearing? Okay. All right, no further discussion on this matter. The next item on the agenda is a vote authorizing the amendment of an existing economic opportunity area, whereas the economic development and job creation are ongoing priorities in the city of Lowell. Whereas Mass General Laws, Chapter 23A, created the Massachusetts Economic Incentive Program, EDIP, which is intended to promote private investment, create and retain employment opportunities, and revitalize distressed areas and communities across the state. And whereas Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, established by Section 3B of said Chapter 23A, is charged with administering the EDIP program, including the review and approval of applications from municipalities for designations of areas of economic target areas, ETAs, or economic opportunity areas, EOA, whereas the City of Lowell was designated as an ETA on October 27, 1994. The Central Business District North EOA in the city was shortly created thereafter. And the City of Lowell, as part of that application, voted to offer qualified projects tax increment financing within the city's economic opportunity areas. And whereas the certified projects located in the Central Business District North EOA expired in October 2004, whereas the City of Lowell hereby seeks to amend an existing EOA by rescinding the economic opportunity area status from the following EOA, Central Business District North EOA. And whereas the City of Lowell has verified and confirms there are no active certified projects within the Central Business District North EOA, now therefore be it voted that the City Council of the City of Lowell approves the amendment to the existing Central Business District North EOA by rescinding the description area delineated as the EOA and requesting approval of the Commonwealth EACC for this amendment, that the City Council of the City of Lowell approves the future creation of site-specific EOAs within the former Central Business District North EOA area, and that the City Council of the City of Lowell determines that future applications received for certified project designation from businesses which meet the eligibility requirement for basis of EOA designation may be individually negotiated with the City of Lowell and submitted to the EACC for approval, that the Division of Planning and Development, Economic Development Office staff is hereby authorized by the City Council to execute any applications necessary to carry out the site-specific economic opportunity area designations, and that the City of DPD Economic Development Office staff is hereby authorized by the City Council to take such other actions as necessary for Lowell's continued participation in the EDI program. And be it further voted that the City Council of the City of Lowell authorizes the city manager to rescind the Central Business District North EOA and create future site-specific EOAs. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. I would make the motion that this vote, as well as the next two, be referred to Economic Development Subcommittee. It seems that this is setting up for a TIF agreement, which is probably, you know, a good thing. We haven't done any for a while, but I think in the past when we've considered TIF agreements or the tax increment financing agreements, we've done it, and whether it be economic development, I think that's usually who has taken it up, sometimes finance or a joint one of finance and economic development, just so the council can hear from the manager's office and planning and development, you know, what's the project, why a 10-year TIF, why are we giving this 10-year tax break, and how did they come up with the whole thing? So it sounds like it's a good project that's being proposed, but I just think in order to get all the information, as long as there's no time sensitivity, I would make that motion that each of the three votes be referred together.
Second by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Milanazzo.
It's my understanding, and I'm going to support that motion, but it is my understanding that there is a time issue with these votes. Again, if the manager wants to explain.
We've been working with these folks for some time, so clearly they're anxious. I mean, but clearly I think it's a wise idea to send it to subcommittee, do it as quickly as possible, and we can make a full presentation and move on with it.
Okay, as chairman of the Economic Development Subcommittee, I'll call a meeting as quickly as possible, but it's my understanding that they would need the vote back to the full council by next Tuesday, based upon, again, everybody's schedule. I know we just set up a Stock Closest School meeting as well as another zoning subcommittee meeting for Monday.
And the technology.
Then a technology meeting. Is Matt?
Well, if there's a time, I'm happy to reschedule technology if this and yield to this subcommittee.
Could I ask Matt, just to, if I could, Mr. Manager, just to explain the timing issue?
Sure.
Mr. Coggins?
Sure, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is trying to get everything in place for April 15th, which is the tax deadline. the EACC, the Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, will only have one more meeting between now and that date, and that's March 30th. They are requiring, or they had actually requested, that everything be into them if in fact the council was going to approve this deal by Monday the 13th. We did explain to them that it has been the practice of the council before to take a tax deal, understandably so, and send it to a subcommittee. They did indicate that if in fact the plan received a favorable vote next Tuesday, we could then overnight the information to them and we could still make their timeline. So if in fact the subcommittee can meet before next Tuesday's meeting, if we can bring this vote back to you on the 14th, that would still serve the purposes of the applicant, and we could hopefully make that deadline.
Councilor
Thank you.
Donahue.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I do think it's important that the subcommittee take it up. It's a 10-year tax deal, and I think we should have all the facts so that we are knowledgeable when we vote. I'd certainly, we'll reschedule technology. I know it keeps getting bumped. And so that there's enough time for this subcommittee to meet before on Tuesday. So I'll
Okay, thank you.
do that.
Okay, Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this building the former Evo's?
Yes.
It is. Well, I took a tour of that building some time ago. Probably some of my colleagues did as well. And if you stand on Middle Street and you look up at this building, you can't even imagine how glorious and magnificent it is inside. I was allowed to go up the stairs with the rest of the people touring, and on the very top floor, it was massive. You could never believe that such a structure is so huge, and it looked like a stage, and it looked like it, and it made me feel that it would be magnificent if you could put a theater in there. It had a stage. You could probably have shows there. You could probably put a small cinema in there. The only problem is there was no elevator, and if you had elderly or ADA, whatchamacallits, you have to do different things. And I know that it seems they're spending $3.5 million to renovate it. Is that right, Matt? In the ballpark. Do you think they'd probably be putting an elevator in there?
They absolutely are putting an elevator, fire suppression system, HVAC, really all of the components that a building needs today to be viable for the commercial market, for a restaurant operation that this building from 1891 has just never had.
And you know what we hear sometime in the city, that people, and it's becoming not just the downtown, it's becoming a vastly grown neighborhood, and people within walking distance would love to have a cinema right in the downtown. I think this is a phenomenal idea, and if they put an elevator, this is,
Yeah, we'll definitely have
the future
elevator.
plans are unbelievable, so I'm all excited about that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. Can you just let us know real quickly what is taking place for myself and
Sure.
people
The
at home?
building- Yep. The building has been purchased for $1,450,000. The first floor will be a full-service restaurant based on the Village Smokehouse in Brookline Village. It will be a 220-seat restaurant. They expect to employ 14 employees. The second level, I should say, will actually be function space, and then the remaining floors will be a commercial use. They expect to create probably about 15 jobs or so when that space is occupied. Just a little bit of background, and we can certainly do more of this next week. We have done 25 TIFs since 1995. I think the manager stated earlier we haven't done some in a while. The last time we did TIF agreements was actually 2001. We did 4 of them that year, and we just really have not seen a major investment in a commercial property in the city in quite some time. I mean, everything that's been happening has been great, but it's been taking underutilized buildings and flipping them to residential. Residential uses are automatically excluded from a TIF. So we haven't brought one before you because we really have not seen this kind of investment in a commercial property in some time. And as for the schedule and all that, we can certainly do that at the subcommittee meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Second reading by title, a vote authorizing the amendment of an existing economic opportunity area. Motion to refer to the Economic Development Subcommittee by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. I'm just going to need to read the next two votes. A vote approving the 9298 Middle Street Economic Opportunity Area. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Any opposed? That motion's adopted. Second reading by title, a vote approving the 9298 Middle Street Economic Opportunity Area. That is to be referred to the Economic Development Subcommittee on the motion of Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion's adopted. The next vote authorizing a certified project application and authorizing a tax increment financing agreement for 9298 Middle Street LLC. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. The second reading by title, a vote approving a certified project application and authorizing a tax increment financing agreement for 9298 Middle Street. Motion to refer to the Economic Development Subcommittee by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Those three votes are referred to the Economic Development Subcommittee for further action. Would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read a communication from the city manager. So moved by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion to suspend the rules is adopted. Dear Mayor Martin and members of the City Council, please be advised that I will be out of town on Wednesday, March 8th, 2006 through Sunday, March 12th, 2006, and would like to recommend to the City Council that Jim Kennedy, CFO, be appointed the acting city manager. If you have any questions regarding this request, please let me know. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Very truly yours, John F. Cox, City Manager. Any questions? The motion to appoint Mr. Kennedy acting city manager in city manager's absence by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Subcommittee reports. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a subcommittee meeting for the zoning subcommittee this evening. It was very well attended by the councilors, the city manager, DPD, and many residents and zoning board and building commissioners. Essentially, we got through a number of items. I'll try and highlight some of the items because we did make some recommendations, unanimous recommendations. The first had to deal with Councilor Caulfield's motion regarding the, Councilor Elliott's motion relative to the Hale Howard Urban Renewal Plan that was brought to the council last week. And we were told that HUD has already approved it. The Hale Howard Urban Renewal Plan is set to expire in the year 2010. What they're asking us to do is to get rid of the overlay, the urban renewal district, so that they can move on their plans now. Their plan is to have 2 towers, 5 to 6 stories apiece, for 118 residential units. They're going to contain roughly 2.2 parking spaces per unit, and it's all part of the governor's smart plan development, which is situating housing, more dense housing by main transportation, the highways and the Gallagher terminal over there. Councilor Milonazo made a motion, seconded by Councilor Elliott, and to recommend approval. It was unanimous. A unanimous vote to recommend approval of the proposal. We also dealt with the methadone clinic that was brought forward several weeks ago, and a motion was made to recommend DPD's adoption of a drafted, it's 7.7, the narcotic detoxification, and basically what it does is it's going to restrict where methadone clinics can be put. The ZBA is going to have special permit power, so they will have the special permit power that's already in place for these types of projects. And in addition, it cannot be within 5,000 feet of another clinic, 750 feet of a public or private school, within 750 feet of a public park, or 750 feet within a nonprofit that cares for children under 18 years of age. So Councilor Elliott made a motion, seconded by Councilor Milonazo, in a unanimous vote to recommend approving that ordinance, section 7.7. I don't know if the other councils have seen it yet, if we want to vote on it tonight or bring it forward to a vote next week. We also made a motion to recommend giving the special permit power back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Council Caulfield has brought it up numerous times, and as a way of giving the residents a second bite at the apple, so to speak, splitting the power. The planning board will have the site plan approval power, which is essentially very technical, and the zoning board now will have the special permit power, which they had under the old zoning code. It was felt that that would give the residents a better chance to express their concerns and be heard. There was a motion made by Councilor Elliott to ask the DPD to draft a change to revert the special permit power back to the ZBA and to bring it back to the next subcommittee meeting for a vote. We talked about, and it made a motion to have DPD draft a sign, I guess it would be an ordinance, to amend the application process for builders and people that are changing use, and this is what, we'll see what DPD comes back with. It's been brought up a number of times by former Councilor Curtis LeMay. Initially is to put these placards in the front of any building where there's going to be some type of construction or change of use or some type of division 14 days prior to any application. Never mind an approval, but before the application, so that people know what's going on. Manager Cox was quick to point out that any reputable builder, he doesn't think we'll have a problem, and I think we all agree that it would be a benefit to everybody to know ahead of time. And lastly, we recessed with the understanding that we would come back and deal with tightening up the, we dealt with 449 Westford Street, and the understanding was that it was, according to the zoning, permits were issued properly, and we agreed that we would recess and take up the issue of increasing the lot size requirements. I know Councilor Elliott has a motion on tonight, hopefully will be brought in as well, and we can continue that at the next meeting, which we scheduled for Monday, March 13th at 5:30, but due to a conflict, we're going to have it at 4:30. So those of the people that were there tonight, hopefully they'll hear this or get notice that it's going to be at 4:30 because there's a prior 5:30 subcommittee commitment. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilor Caulfield, but can we act on the first recommendation there first? Do you have something to say about the first item, the recommendation on
yes,
Hale
I do.
Howard? All right,
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes. I would just like to compliment the zoning subcommittee for doing an excellent job this evening, listening and hearing everyone's concerns, including mine, people in attendance. It was well attended, and I just want to point out one thing. When members of the council, residents in the city see a building going up on a postage stamp, I suppose the first reaction is to go down and see Joe Guthrie and give him a piece of your mind. But as Joe Guthrie's indicated over and over and over, he's only following the zoning code that this council has set up. And the purpose of bringing this forward is have the zoning subcommittee to re-examine the zoning code and make amendments to it so some buildings in some neighborhoods aren't built on a postage stamp. So I just want to clarify that, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, that sometimes Mr. Guthrie takes a verbal beating. He took one from me a couple weeks ago. And I was just so frustrated and aggravated with the size of the lot, with the two houses that were being built on it. It was just disturbing. But as Mr. Guthrie has pointed out, he is living up to the rules and regulations that the zoning code allows. So I just want to clarify that. But Councilor Broderick did an excellent job chairing the meeting tonight.
Okay. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. You know, the law, in defense of the subcommittee and the council and Mr. Guthrie, the lot in question, which I think we all agree looks lousy in terms of the 2 units. In fact, though, the change to the zoning code, instead of 2, it could have been 7 under the old zoning. So we did make some progress, maybe not enough for what we want. And this is why it's a work in progress, because you have to kind of tweak that. But as bad as these 2 are, you would have had 7 2 years ago, or could have had 7. And that's by no means to say the work is done. And so I think the subcommittee continues the good work of trying to, fine-tune and perfect this zoning code that's very complicated.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Elliott.
I want to go to the first motion, Mr. Mayor, that you alluded to, and that's the Hale Howard Urban Renewal Plan, because I had requested that it go to the zoning subcommittee for a recommendation. Mr. Manager or Ms. Matt Coggins, can we get an explanation, because it is a rather large housing development. It does not change the existing zoning that is in place and that has been in place. It does lift restrictions from the Hale Howard Street project back to the 70s, which are scheduled to expire in 3 years anyway. So I asked a number of questions in the subcommittee. If we do nothing, what happens? The property sits pretty much as it is. The restrictions expire in 3 years anyway, and the developer is free to proceed with his proposed plans of 118 units, 2 towers. It does have 2.2 parking spaces, and in subcommittee, Councilor Rita Mercer raised the issue of why this 0.2, why, because it really doesn't make sense to me, and probably the people watching at home. Where do we get this point stuff, 0.9, 0.75? But the point in this case is 2 per unit plus the 0.2 for visitor parking, as I understand it. And I think we should do away with that myself. I agree. But can we have Mr. Coggins explain why we're having so many units? That's a lot of units in an area that I guess it doesn't have much now, but it does abut an industrial. So.
I think Matt can get into more specifics. Attorney Flood is here as well. He could answer any questions you may have as well. The action, as pointed out by Councilor Broderick this evening, would simply allow to change the current regulations over there. As we all know, it's kind of a blighted area there. We were thrilled to have someone come forth with great plans to put some life back into that neighborhood. It really goes with the smart growth phase, or not phase, but the smart growth movement that's happening throughout the Commonwealth at this time. Obviously, those 2 towers would be near the connector, which is, mass transit, not mass transit, but the transit system, near the LRTA, the Gallagher Terminal, which is mass transit. So all the things that are in place that planners and developers and people who think a little forward thinking are in place there. And right now it's a nothing piece of property. This would turn it into some life. This would be not affordable housing or subsidized housing, but market rate housing. So we're excited about it. It's the first real development that has come along in the Hale Howard area since I've been here. So we're excited about this. We think it's the right thing to do, and if Matt or Jimmy have anything to say, they can certainly add to it. But this seems to make a lot of sense to us, and again, it's a piece of property that we get, which is generating really nothing right now, that'll turn into a nice place for people to live.
Well, I think it's important to note it's not smack dab in the middle of of a neighborhood. It's really on the fringe. Maybe you can explain. Hey, we all know where Hale Howard is, but it's essentially right behind the Gallagher Terminal, correct? Okay.
It's basically between the Gallagher Terminal and the connector.
And the connector, right?
I guess I would just reiterate, as we said, the subcommittee, the main restrictions that you would be removing, the first is to even allow this to happen. As part of the Hale Howard plan, only commercial development can happen in this area. The second restriction would be that currently you can only build on 40% of the parcel. So that restriction would be removed and they would be guided by current zoning. And then the last restriction that's in place is that you can only build 30 feet high. When the plan was done, the idea was to encourage single or 2-level commercial buildings to be built in that area. So those restrictions would be removed. The applicant would then have to go through the current zoning. As we said at the subcommittee, that would require a site plan review with the planning board and then the issuance of a special permit from the zoning board of appeals, if in fact that's granted.
And that's probably important to note because we did discuss that as a result of Councilor Caulfield's note. There's 2 levels of review. One is site plan, in the planning board, and then it's going to zoning board of appeals, and I thought that was important, and I plan to support it.
Okay, so the first action that was recommended by the subcommittee was to vote to approve this. If I could just read the vote. Vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to request approval of the following change to the urban renewal plan for the Hale-Howard area from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Community, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. Motion to approve by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia? Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay. Councilor Broderick, as to I think the second part of your report, a zoning ordinance change like that would require a advertisement for a public hearing. So I think it would be appropriate to just accept the balance of the subcommittee report as a report of progress, place that on file, and in the minutes of that subcommittee report, noted as your request for that to come back to the council for advertisement as a public hearing. So, motion to approve the subcommittee report as a report of progress by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Any opposed? The subcommittee report is approved. Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, very briefly, I just want to compliment Curtis LeMay, who brought forward the recommendation of the signage for construction, and Curtis LeMay brought some examples of that signage to my home, so I will give it to the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the city can either amend it, adopt it, whatever they like, but I'd like to just thank Curtis LeMay for coming forward with that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Elliott.
The chairman really recapped the meeting pretty well, but I just wanted to add that we have a list of a number of items just from the planning department alone on proposed zoning amendments, which include setbacks and balconies and a whole list of items that we need to address, including the posting of notices that I believe is going to come in next week. So, Council Broderick we went over a lot of things, but I think the underlying issue is that there's a lot more things that we have to address. So I'll probably speak to some of them on my motion tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Any more subcommittee reports? Okay, we have two petitions, claims for property damage. Motion to refer to the Law Department by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Donahue. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Under motions, first motion is by Councilor Elliott. Request the city manager have the Law Department draw the proper vote to amend the zoning regulations to increase required lot size, square footage in residential zones with 2 or more units, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. We did speak about this. I should have just continued with speaking before, but I guess this just coincides with all of the other changes that we're making in the new zoning code. And we heard it throughout the whole campaign. I think Council Mercier said it in subcommittee. People are, they're concerned, they're upset, they're frustrated with some of the developments that are taking place, and not just one neighborhood. I think it's, throughout the city, and it's, I think it's frustrating. It's frustrating for all of us here in the council. We put something in place that we thought was going to, and we did close a lot of the loopholes. I think there's complete agreement that what we put in place stopped a lot of the, really multi-family developments that we saw taking place on Hildreth Street and other areas throughout the city, but it just isn't enough. And we discussed Westford Street that Councilor Councilor Caulfield filed a motion on last week, and that just flies in the face as to what we're trying to do in the city, and it'll continue to happen again if we don't take these steps. So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the magic number is, but what I do know is that people have told me, and they've told all of us, that we have got to do something more. We got to put more teeth or more restrictions into the current zoning code, and I think that we should do it. So I don't think anyone's against development. I think the manager said it also in the subcommittee. Posting, a placard or a sign on any piece of property that's going to be developed or rezoned or built upon. Any developer in the city, builder, responsible builder, will have no problem doing that, because I don't think they want to do it under the cloak of darkness. However, given that, there are other developers that seem to be just slipping these in. So I don't know how. I'll take responsibility for it. I think we need to continue to put more restrictions, including not just square foot. I never really understood why you need 10,000 square feet for a single-family home, yet you only need 7,500 for, a two-family, and then it gets, progressively smaller as the units get greater. And I understand condominiums, and I think there's a certain section in the city, some people don't want a yard. They don't want to have to take care of it, and that's the purpose of condominiums, but just not in areas where there's single-family. So that, along with, and I argued that in subcommittee, and I continue to hold that we need to increase the lot size, because what is in place is not working. Maybe it's set side yard requirements to increase the side yard, and rear yard requirements, all of these things. The developers are finding ways to I guess, pigeonhole, as they say, into the lots. And I went by Westford Street today, and that is just not a good development, and one house right behind the other, and that needs to be fixed. So that's my point. I think we all heard it from the people, and that's who we serve, and we have to continue to work on that. And I think parking is a primary issue that we need to address. And I thought we should have a minimum of 2 parking spots per unit, no matter where it is. I know that wasn't the recommendation of planning and development, but I stand firm that we need to do that, and parking is an issue, particularly in the wintertime, naturally. In some of the neighborhoods, I understand that, when the zoning was put in place, there weren't a lot of vehicles. However, given that we're revamping this, I'd like to see a minimum of two vehicles per unit, because families have more vehicles. So I don't want to belabor the issue, and I think I have, but I think it's important to get my feelings out there and to move toward making these changes in the subcommittee. Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would request that this motion be sent to the zoning subcommittee. I was extremely pleased and happy with the zoning subcommittee this evening, that they answered all my questions for me, and I know they can probably answer this. I think the big issue in the city is the subdivision of land, Mr. Mayor. A 2-family house, a developer comes in, subdivides the land, and they build 2 small houses. It's just ruining the aesthetics of the whole neighborhood. I think that's the issue. That's what we have to look at, the subdivision of land, and increase the square footage for any building that should go on there. Thank you.
Okay. Any objection to referring this to the zoning subcommittee? All right, Councilor Broderick, then Councilor Milonazo.
Okay, I was going to second it, and I think that we're on the right path, and I think it's a matter of balance. We heard that it was that project potentially under the old code, Mr. Mayor, that you helped, could have been 7 units. So it was reduced to 2, and now the feeling is that 2's too many. So we can, again, I think we're on the right track, and we're making great progress, and look forward to maybe somehow reducing the number of units that can be put on again, and in an effort to strike a balance here for the build that's fair for builders and for homeowners, and it's good for the rest of the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've had some tremendous discussions in the zoning subcommittee, and I look forward to continuing those discussions, especially as it relates to Councilor Elliott's motion. I think that when we look at minimum lot size, especially in a traditional multifamily area, we should also look at it as it relates to per dwelling unit, because right now it's 6,000 square feet for the lot, but then you can actually have 2,500, you only need 2,500 square feet per dwelling unit, so that's how they snuck in 2 units in that particular 6,000 square foot lot. So maybe what we need to do is have it be, 6,000 square foot lot, but 4,000 square feet per dwelling unit, so then you end up with one house as opposed to the 2. So again, it needs further refinement. It's a work in progress, and I look forward to continuing those discussions.
Okay. Motion to refer this motion to the zoning subcommittee by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion's adopted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests city manager take necessary steps to place 178 Woburn Street on the demolition list, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I filed this is the third time, and we did receive a response back from Planning Development that the building department have to take, additional steps to put this on the demolition list. But I guess not only for this one, but where are we with demolition? And I know we haven't done a demolition order for quite some time. Is there, I'll presume that there's a list of homes that have to be done. This particular piece of property has been abandoned since 1997. The windows are broken. The kids are. The police have had to been there frequently. They're partying in there, and the property is in disrepair. And I understand there are some legal issues surrounding this that can't be settled because of generations and people have passed on. But in the meantime, the people in South Lowell have to drive by it every day, and and it's an eyesore to the neighborhood, and like anywhere else in the neighborhood, they shouldn't have to be. It's just, they shouldn't have to see this on a daily basis. So, I guess I asked you a couple of questions. If you could let me know where are we with the demolition, and can we do something with this
I will find out specifically about this property, Councilor. As we all know, the demolition process is one that is not favorable to the city. There are many, many ways to delay it. There are many, many ways to get properties off demolition lists, and so it's a difficult process to weave through. But let me find out exactly what's going on with this one, and we'll try to be aggressive on it.
And I don't disagree, Mr. Manager. I know it's a long process and a difficult process. However, since I've been sitting here, I don't know how many cases are, sort of, I don't want to say solved, but as soon as we go to place that demolition, miraculously, the homeowners come by or their representatives, and they want to, settle. There's $32,000 in back taxes on this one alone, and I'm sure there are others on that list. So I appreciate, moving on this, and the people that live in that neighborhood would appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's exactly the point that I wanted to raise, as Councilor Elliott suggested, that it's like a last-ditch effort that it becomes vacant and abandoned for all these years. The minute they realize that it's on the demolition list, it's like miraculously they come to life. It's like the mother saying, well, if you're not going to ride that bike, I'm going to give it to your cousin, and next thing you know, the kid's riding the bike. It's almost the same idea with this principle, and so I think it's a good thing. It gives them like a shot in the arm and gets them going again.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? I vote present on this one, Mr. Clerk. Motion is adopted. Next motion is by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests the city manager update the council on the License Commission decisions relative to the Paradise Club, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
Well, I did read the report in the newspaper, Mr. Manager, and I have to say that I was a little concerned with the recommendation that was, I suppose, not adopted, and the decision that was handed down, particularly in light of, the number of, I guess, incidences that have taken place up there. I'm familiar with the area, and the police officers are concerned about it, and I don't understand exactly why the Licensing Commission did not go with the recommendation of the police department. And there's a real problem up there, and I've also heard from police officers that they're concerned. They don't want to go downstairs because the portable radios have very poor reception, and there are safety issues. So I think we need to revisit it, and I don't know what way what legal means or what the procedure is, but it's sort of a noted location for gang activity, and I think that we needed to take some stronger measures to send a message. And if 11 o'clock was the recommendation, why didn't we go with it? It's not as if there weren't, prior altercations or issues. So I don't know if you can shed any more light on that, Mr. Manager, but I felt compelled to bring this up because it's sort of just like another problem, or I didn't want to sit back and do nothing, and then guess what? There's a fatality up there.
I share your concern, Counsel. The first I heard about it was when I read about it in the paper, too. I was disappointed with the action as well. We will get a full report from the License Commission, and we'll share that with you. I do not know the rationale for doing what they did.
Is there anything through either you, Mr. Manager, or the...
I don't think so. I mean, I was on the License Commission prior to
that's
another life, and I think that's, I think there are usually appeals of the decision to the ABCC on some points, but I don't think on this one. So I really don't think that there's any recourse at this point.
Well, I hope this will serve notice that, particularly with the problems that have taken place up there, are they required to have police officers at that site? Are there details? I mean...
I think that probably varies on number of people there, whether they're having events at night or something like that. But clearly they're not exempt from what everybody else has to go through. Clearly they have to play by the same rules. And again, I will give you a full report on this specific instance and try to shed some light on what happened.
Well, I appreciate that. If there is something either through the solicitor's office that we can do, if there's, I don't know if there's an appeal, but I think that there's something that we can do, we should try to do it, and maybe the manager knows there isn't, but appreciate it.
The law department was there at the hearing, and in conjunction with the police department, presented the evidence to the License Commission, and so we can take a look at any potential appeal, but I'm not aware of any.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. Next motion by Councilor Rita Mercier. The City Council requests the City Manager provide a report as to the plans for our youth this summer. Seconded by Councilor Ramirez. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In realizing how fast time goes by, before you know it, budget time will be upon us. So this motion is to identify the possibility of funds available for our youth. And I have some questions as, will there be any budget cuts that affect our children as far as summer projects go? What can we look forward to this summer for the youth of our city? How do we stand with the Healthy Summer? I know, Mr. Manager, I'll give you a list of all. What can we look forward to this summer for the youth of our city? Are you taking shorthand, Mr. Manager? Are you taking shorthand? I hope it's not no. How do we stand with the Healthy Summer program? I bring this motion up in a timely fashion because it seems that when cuts are made, our children seem to pay the price, and I don't mean to belittle that, but it seems like that's where we seem to be able to cut, and I really think that it's important that we don't. With the gang activity that we have in the city, I don't want to lose any child because of idle time. We have to keep them busy. So this motion asks for a report on a plan that tells us the status of what our children can look forward to this summer. And I have a question: does any summer programs accommodate disabled children? As was a request by a few parents of handicapped children, how do they fit into the scheme of the summer programs? And I want to know if we have a youth coordinator that replaced Thea Zaralidis from years ago, because she was tremendous to coordinate all the efforts. So I know it's only March, but I know time passes so quickly that I'd like to refer these motions to our youth subcommittee, which is chaired by Judge Ramirez, Councilor Ramirez. So I think this is very important so that we can get a grip on what's happening, what's available for our children. I think parents would want to know, and then the newspaper could print something as to what's available for our children. I know money's tight at budget time. It's tight all the time, but I don't want to skimp when it comes to our future.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, Tony Bellegarde and I have already begun talking about the things that you talk about. The disabled children situation, Councilor, I don't know about that. That's a very good question. I don't know how our programs in the past have been structured on the disabled, but that's something that we will certainly talk to Tommy about. Clearly, we're hopeful as we sit here in March that we will be able to do at least as much as we did last year. But that's not a guarantee. That clearly is not something we can guarantee at this point. It's something that we're hopeful for. It's something that we don't want to go backwards on the pools and the other summer recreations that we provided. And really, in I think 2 or 3 years, we've gone from basically having no pools to inching up and having a pretty active summer program again. So I know Healthy Summer, Tommy and I just spoke about that last week. I think they're already beginning to do something, and Tommy's, I think, involved with that from the beginning. It's impossible to say what we're going to be able to do 3 months from now. Clearly, commitment is to do at least what we did last year. If we can do more, we will try to do that. But that's our goal as we sit here today, is to do at least what we did last year.
And if we do have that goal, Mr. Manager, to do what we did last year, it's better than having nothing from, we were cutting
Right.
to the point where Councilor Caulfield established this grand fundraising effort.
Right.
So if we can have what we had last year, it'd be better than having nothing.
That's our
And I
goal,
want
yep.
something to take place for our children in the summer. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to make a motion to refer it to the subcommittee, but we're all set with that, so I think we'll second, and I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Motion to refer this motion to the Subcommittee on Youth by Councilor Rita Mercier, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion's adopted. The next motion is by Councilor Rita Mercier. City Council requests the city manager provide a report as to the plans concerning Hannaford on Plain Street, second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At last Tuesday's council meeting, at the very end of the meeting, I was going to say that Hannaford supermarket would be closed June 4th, but with everybody seeming to wanting to get home, as well as myself, I figured I'd make a motion. But as we all know, when read in the paper, that this is actually going to happen. Now, I realize that this is a motion that is not directly a city issue, and that we are not responsible for the closing of this major supermarket, but it does relate to an issue that affects the daily habits and lives of people in a neighborhood that will lose a very valuable asset. I bring this motion up in hopes that we as a city can find ways and means to deal with the loss and the work with the owners, and we could work with the owner or owners to establish another food source in its place, or whatever may be there. This is a supermarket that was close. It was very close in proximity for many elderly people, many families living in a housing complex, people on fixed incomes. It was a supermarket that was handy for people. It was within walking distance. It allowed people to pay their utility bills there. The closing of this supermarket has a great negative impact on a large residential neighborhood, and we as a council should be concerned. I know that I'm concerned about it. If you, Mr. Manager, could put together a report on what we can do to set up plans in dealing with an empty storefront on Plain Street, perhaps the planning department can get involved, and if possible, to have another food source available for our Highland residents. The Chelmsford food store is too far when you don't have a car. But other than that, I know that there's talk about how huge this magnificent building is and the land that's there. I know that Councilor Milanazzo talked about the Hamilton Canal possibly being the host of a courthouse. I know everybody gasped at that, but there's talk about what if it went there. I know perhaps plans are in place, though, for the Davidson area, so probably that's out of the question, but if I had my choice, I'd like to...
Let me try to nip that one in the bud already, right off the bat. I think that would be impossible.
Impossible, but...
We're certainly looking at the potential uses for that. I agree with you, Councilor.
If we had another food store come in, that's going to be a great loss to the neighborhood when they move to Rogers Street. I know there's people that walk that don't have cars that live in that neighborhood, and
I don't even know if Hannaford owns the site. I mean, clearly, if they own the site, I think it'd be unlikely that they would want a competitor to go into that site. But we'll certainly look at it and see. Maybe there's been some discussions with DPD, with
maybe we
Hannaford.
could put a Demoulas there.
That would probably not be likely, I don't think.
I
But
mean, we could put another food store there, that would
that's,
be...
we'll certainly look at all the potentials.
It's not just a food store, it was a place where people paid their
Right,
bills.
I understand what you're saying.
Where are they gonna pay their bills now? If they don't have a car, they have to take public transportation
I
again,
understand.
and it's inconveniencing to them, so this was right in the neighborhood and
We'll get you
affects a
report.
lot of lives.
We'll get a report on it.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Manager.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion is adopted. The next motion is mine. Any objection if I read from here?
No.
Next motion, it's the city council requests the city manager have the proper department repair the sidewalk on the north side of Hurd Street, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Mr. Manager, this is Hurd Street, really from the Lowell Association, from the blind down to the Lowell Cooperative Bank. There is some damage to the sidewalk. It's not extensive, but it does impact, blind people that use that sidewalk coming in and out of the center. So I know this season is upon us, or near to be upon us, when we do these types of things. I'd like this to be added to the list. Councilor Rita Mercier?
Mr. Mayor, is the sidewalk cemented? Is
Yes.
it a cemented
Yes.
sidewalk?
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion's approved. The next item has been withdrawn in light of the noise ordinance presented tonight. So the final matter is under unanswered motions. Councilor Ramirez requests a status report on wiring the mayor's reception room for broadcasts, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I just was hoping the manager could at least update us on the progress of that wiring.
Mr. Manager?
Certainly, Councilor. I think the motion came in on the 3rd of January by Councilor Ramirez. And the motion I have, it says, request the city manager take the necessary steps to have the mayor's reception room wired in order to televise zoning board of appeals and planning board meetings. As you all know, at the beginning of February, the planning board and the ZBA both are being televised. They're being televised in here. On January 19th, Jack Hall, our television cable coordinator, had a memorandum in the packet for I think it was the January 20th meeting, talking about the mayor's reception room, the fact that some time ago, 2 different companies looked at installing cameras and microphones in there. The price would be far in excess of $35,000. They weren't sure what they'd have to do with the walls and drilling of the walls, and it was two companies did not go forward because of the cost or the potential cost. And then the last sentence says from Jack Hall, finally I have asked Comcast to provide an estimate for any additional equipment, wiring, etc., to connect the mayor's reception room to the cable system. I am waiting for a response. I talked to Jack yesterday. We're still waiting. We have not heard from Comcast on that. So clearly, I don't know what the cost would be to do that. And until you get some estimates from Comcast, that's what we're waiting for.
All right, and I appreciate that. I did read the correspondence, and it was January 19th, so I figured 6 weeks would be a fair time to get an update. And I know that the planning and the zoning have been televised, and I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate Bud and Rita Mercier's, at the time it was their recommendation that we begin to use the council chambers while we waited for this to be done. So if we could just get some estimates, because I know that other members of the council spoke about the fact that we wanted to not only have those 2 regulatory boards, but also the subcommittees begin to be televised. So if we can get some of those, some bids, so we know what we're talking about to have it wide. Thank you.
Yeah, clearly we'll try to do that. Any subcommittees could meet in here and be televised. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to spend money, whatever that is going to be, on the mayor's reception room when people can come up here and be televised here. To all the equipment is here. We're waiting for Comcast. Obviously, it's not as simple as we might have thought it would be, but it just seems to me like this room's already wired to go, and it's worked pretty well with the ZBA and the planning, and, but that's, we'll get an estimate, you know, we'll ask Comcast to get working on this again.
Mr. Manager, while you reminded me of something, I had a chance to speak to the executive director, Robert Haig of LTC, and he spoke to me and told me that he felt that $35,000, which I know is mentioned by Mr. Hall, is still a reasonable price for that.
I've not spoken to him about it, so I don't know how, I don't think he's come over and looked at it or anything, so I don't know how he would know that, but he and I have not spoken about it, but we have Comcast waiting for them, and as soon as we get those, I'm happy to share those numbers with the council, clearly, as soon as we get them.
Thank you.
Council Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. 10 minutes ago, we were discussing what the youth are going to do this summer. Will there be enough money to fund their programs, swimming pools, etc.? And I understand Councilor Ramirez's concerns, but the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals are now televised in these chambers. We all know, we all realize, as councilors, as chairman of the various boards, you have all the right in the world to have your subcommittee meeting here in the council chambers and have it televised. I have done that many times, and so haven't my colleagues. I just can't see the expenditure of putting cameras in the mayor's reception room when we have them here. The zoning subcommittee could have been held here tonight, along with other various meetings. If we didn't have the cameras for the planning board and the zoning board of appeals, that's one issue that we would have to address, but we do. And until that point in time comes that we can't amply televise all meetings, subcommittee meetings, etc., then I think what we have to live with financially, and as far as the funding is concerned. We do have some tight roads ahead of us financially. So, in all due respect, I think we should be best just to let it as it is and put that money that would be costly to put cameras in the mayor's reception room, microphones, etc., to another day until we have ample funding to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this topic? Before we adjourn, I just want to, there was some discussion about subcommittee meetings for next week. Councilor Milanazzo?
If I could, before we adjourn, if my colleagues would just give me just one brief moment. Two things. One, in your packet this evening, we had an update from Matt Coggins on the Hamilton Canal District, and I just wanted to point out that it looks as though the date to discuss the takings has been moved to April 4th. So again, just to let my colleagues know that. And then if I could just say, and to follow up on what Councilor Caulfield said about Mrs. Asian, I had the good fortune to work with Mrs. Asian for 6 years at the Lowell Housing Authority, and I would certainly be remiss if I didn't thank Mrs. Asian for her 10 years of service at the Lowell Housing Authority. She is a very caring individual who loved the position as the resident member of the Board of Commissioners, and really took a great deal of interest in what was happening with the residents of the Housing Authority. So again, I enjoyed my 6 years working with Mrs. Asian, and I want to just wish her the best. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Sorry, I know
Mercia.
that since we're under suspension, I would like to just briefly state through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, this is the second time it's like becoming repetitive now, where people are calling my house on a regular basis stating that F.W. Russell forgot not just them, but a whole street.
Midland Street.
Midland Street. Last week it was another street. I mean, we're talking about recycling and saving money, and people, how are they going to recycle again when their basket is still full from the week before? So
I spoke with a woman today. I spoke with the gentleman at Russell and made them aware of it. I'm quite sure it won't happen again.
And that's not a side street. That goes from Chelmsford to Stevens. Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
Mr. Manager.
I just want to read the subcommittee meeting schedule for next week, as I understand it after the discussion tonight. Monday, the 13th, at 4:30 will be the school building subcommittee, followed by... the zoning is at 4:30, and the school building is at 5:30? Okay? And then on Tuesday, the 14th, the technology subcommittee is 4:30, and the economic development subcommittee is 5:30. Correct? Okay. Okay. 4:30 is technology, 5:30 is economic development. That's Tuesday, the 14th, and on Monday, the 13th, it'll be zoning at 4:30 and school building at 5:30. Okay? Counselor Elliott.
I just wanted to mention, while you mentioned the technology subcommittee meeting, people should know that the email system is working, because I've been receiving emails and sending them back. So if people need to get a hold of us, they go to the website and click on, and they can send emails. So it seems to be working pretty good.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Counselor Donahue, seconded by Counselor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Meeting stands adjourned.